Okay, so today we're going to talk about elasticity, and we're talking about in a different video. We'll go through the actual calculation, percent change in quantity over percent change in price. But here are some real world examples just for you to start thinking about it. So elasticity in general is simply if I have a change in price or a percent change in price, let's say 10% for sake of argument, in quantity, say change is 90%. Well, that means the quantity demanded is very reactive or very elastic to a change in price. If my percent change in price is only 10% and my percent change in quantity is, say, only 1%, that would be a very small change in quantity demanded based on a change in price, and those would be inelastic products. So, example number one, a required textbook versus mystery novels. Well, what do we know about required textbooks? There aren't a lot of good substitutes, right? I can't say if it's required, it's required. And anytime there aren't good substitutes, I tend to be very inelastic, right? Because I don't have any choices. So the one that would be more elastic in this case would be mystery novels, because if the price of this writer goes up, I switch to a different writer. I don't have that option with required textbooks. So anytime there's few substitutes, it tends to be inelastic, tends to be. Anytime I have lots of good substitutes, it tends to be elastic. Okay, Adele recording or popular music in general. Okay, so Adele recording is something very, very, very specific, right? As opposed to pop music recordings is very, very, very general. So if I'm a big Adele recording fan, that is, that's I'm a fan of hers, I'm probably going to be fairly inelastic to that, as opposed to pop music recordings in general, where there's lots of different substitutes. Okay, the next one, subway rides during the next 6 months or subway rides for the next 5 years. So what they're getting at here is anytime I have a long time horizon or more years, right, I'll have a tendency to be more elastic because more options come into play, right? Like, let's say a subway ride in the next 30 minutes and that's the only way to get home. Well, then that's going to be very inelastic because I have a very short time horizon. And once again, I don't have a lot of substitutes that I can do in a short period of time. You give me 5 years, I can change a lot of things in 5 years. So the subway ride in the next 5 years tends to be more elastic. Root beer or water? Well, root beer is very water I need to survive, right? So that's going to be very inelastic. Root beer, I like root beer, but I could have a Coke or I could have a Pepsi. But water I need to survive. So remember, the concept is percent change in quantity versus normally divided by percent change in price. If it's a large change in quantity demanded, i.e., if that calculation is greater than one, it tends to be elastic. If it tends to be less than one, i.e., I had very little change in quantity, it's called inelastic. And if it's exactly one, I didn't put it on the chart here, it's called unit elasticity. Hope that helps.